Linköping Hockey Analytics Conference, second day going into the final stages. We just had a great laugh in here. And when you're in a studio like this, working tight with people, it's fun to laugh and keep things moving. We're now going to go over to the industry panel. And we have 4 different participants in our industry panel. Thorsten Apel comes from Sports Contract. We got to hear him yesterday. Martin Rumo, we come from OYM or OIM. We also have Sean Tierney from Sports Logic, who's been a part of our program a couple of times. And then Morgan Zeba from Speedio, who got to show their products and a part with a video with Frölunda yesterday. So we have 90 minutes, the industry, where is it going, what's happening, who owns things, what can we do? Those are the kind of questions. I've got my computer here, so if you want to ask a few questions, send them in. Be happy to ask the participants, and make it easier for me to do it. If you want something specific to be known, please send it in. So from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, guys, are you ready?
Yes.
I hope so. Do we all have beards? I don't have a beard. I shaved this morning. You guys all have beards. All right, welcome. As we have 90 minutes, I think that we should start from the beginning and then take it a little bit step by step. And I know that you've all been presenting and done things and talked previously yesterday, but I'd really like you to take a minute or two and go through each company so we know where we're at, who you're representing, and then we'll get into the discussion. Thorsten, can you start and talk about Sports Contract for me? Could you do that?
Yes, sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, my name is Thorsten Apel. I'm from Sport Contract. As mentioned yesterday, I'm a former professional hockey player. I started Sport Contract already in 1999-2000, really from a perspective of a player that I wanted to play in a different country. And that's how it started in 2000. The thing is what happened for the last 20 years. I think I hoped a lot of things went or would have happened faster. So in 2000, we experienced that a lot of things that finally we have the last years were just not ready. So we realized that the internet quality was not good enough, speed was not good enough, the video quality was not good enough, the computers were too weak. So a lot of things that we need for our product is now already in place, and it's also in place for different leagues. That means we have now better and better video. It can get always better, so we're waiting for even better videos in all leagues. With that, we can produce better data, and with that, we can help the teams, the players. With that, we can build software for the manager, for the coaches, for the analysts, for the scouts, to help them to do their work better, easier, or to help them to make the game more visual for them, or to help them to understand the data. So I think that's what we do and what's now possible in hockey. It has not been for a long time. So I think we getting into really interesting times, as we heard over the last today and yesterday. That's coming to a point where the data can be produced, where the videos are there, where we can scale from pro to use, and on a global level.
Thank you. Morgan, you got to present your program or Speedio yesterday, a really nice film with Frölunda. Can you give us the short and tell us a little bit about Speedio?
Yes, I can give you a short one. Yeah, my name is Morgan. I work for the Speedio, Swedish company based down in Malmö. We're a specialist in video capture. As we all know here with the analytics today, there's a lot of data goes on, and we are one company that actually brings footage to all the data we can do. So even if you work with our software or our tools or anybody else's tools, it's quite nice to have a video capture of everything and that in multiple angles. I have a professional background in soccer, actually football, so I don't really have that much of an ice hockey background in that sense, but I've been working with it for 3.5 years now, and I would say I love it in that sense, because it's a little bit more open. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but it's a little bit more open-minded that maybe the football world in the highest level. So yeah, we can start from there. We have plenty of time to discuss other
I'll tell
things.
you that any soccer player, football player that is 3 years in hockey always loves hockey more than soccer. That's an easy one, so I'm not surprised at all. Sean, you were part of us a couple of times yesterday. Give us the short on Sport Logic.
Sure, yeah, happy to be back again. So Sport Logic, we're a company that's providing analytics, video, and tools to our teams. We're working throughout North America and Europe, NHL, AHL, USHL and the CHL leagues, and also SHL and Hockey Allsvenskan here in Europe, along with some other league partners. And what we're providing to our teams is comprehensive analytics data available in a number of different ways at the player, at the game, at the team level to help teams make better decisions. We really emphasize that our products should be multifunctional and tools that anybody within an organization can use. I'm sure that's something we'll get to at the panel today. So I'll just point quickly to the fact that I think we all recognize that providing data means being good communicators, and that comes back to making sure that the platform you have is accessible for all sorts of people that work within a team. So at Sport Logic, that's sort of been the driving force for us in my time with the company.
Thanks. Martin, welcome to us, and give us a little about OYM. You and I, we quickly OYM, OIM, so I may say both. I hope you can accept both of those. What do you say?
Sure.
Do you say OIM or OYM?
Well, we say OIM, but that is like in Switzerland, it's Swiss German or German, and it stands for on your mark. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's an abbreviation, and when we are talking in English, we would say OIM.
Okay, or I could say on your mark then.
Okay, so we don't really have a software solution to sell. We are more a competence center for athletic performance, with great emphasis on working systematically and scientifically. It's basically performance engineering, and I work there as an analytics translator. Me myself being a computer scientist with also second branch of study was neurobiology, and I was always interested in how information is processed by humans and by machines, and building intelligent systems. Sport is a great context in which you can test methods. And so the OYM really is going very far to collect data and to validate it and to work with it, to come up with indicators to help the athletes, be the best version of themselves. And we have the EV Zug, which is the second time Swiss champion, and we work closely with the four core competencies that we have: nutrition, athletic performance, athletic health, and R&D. As I said, a very great emphasis on scientific, let's say, measurements and analysis. I also work as a lecturer at the University of Lucerne, where we can, innovate with students. And the good thing about working with students is that it's at low cost. You can fail. When you are in a company, you need to, time to market must be short. You don't have many opportunities to fail. So working with academia, I think, is very important. And I'm, as an analytics translator in this panel, I will have the voice of the promoting co-creation between tech companies and the sports organization. The domain experts and the tech experts must somehow speak together maybe even agree on a common language. So that is my role, I guess, a little bit here in the panel.
Thank you. An interesting question you bring up right away. Are you guys all tech companies or are you data companies? Thorsten, what would you say? Are you guys a tech company or a data company?
I would say we are a tech company, but data over the years got more and more important. So we started really like a scouting and video and transfer and communication system, and we try to provide tools to the teams for scouting, but also for the coaches. And over the years, the data became more and more important, and now it's essential to have data, to create really good data and to make these data visual for all different people in the organization. So that's a change.
Morgan, what are you guys? Got a data company or tech company? I don't know if I can hear you, Morgan. I don't know if you.
I think you're muted.
I think you're muted. Yeah.
I think. Sorry. No, I think we are a tech company in that sense, but also getting more and more into data because there's a lot of data now comes into from all over the place. I would say so. More of the tech side of us, I would say.
Sean, what's SportLogic?
It's interesting. I might have guessed the other answer possibly for the first two. I thought data right away. I think that's the calling card that we're providing the data that our partners are going to work with. So I do see this is a really tricky question to pull apart. Where does the tech end and the data begin, or the other way around? But I think for us, the difference maker is we're a data company. We provide that data, try to contextualize it. So I think we fall on that side.
I've asked, we've had a meeting before, so all the viewers out there that we've talked a little about this, and I've asked all the participants to be open to talk to each other, jump in on each other's discussions. So yes, in some sense, competitors maybe at some point, but also trying to bridge and grow the business. All of these four different companies are trying to do. So I'm going to try to see that we create a great atmosphere, but still at the same time ask some pretty interesting or hard questions. I'm going to start with the beginning and the easy one, and we're going to kind of start backwards, I would say. Where do you go to school? Where do you learn about this? Where do you... I like the business. I want to get in the business. Thorsten, I want to work for you. Or Sean, I want to be a part of your team. Or OYM, wow, I want to work. Is there any place to learn what you guys do? Schools? Universities?
I can say for us as that because we looking for really good developers. We looking for UI UX designers. We were looking for data analysts, for hockey experts. So I think there are different people needed in this kind of companies nowadays. I mean, in 2000 when we started, it was with 3 people, and I was a hockey player and I had this idea. So we were sitting together and we were developing coding. So I was programming with the others, and then we built our first version. But now over the years, it's got much more professional. I think now the companies are we need all really high-end experts. Otherwise, you cannot do what is needed, what is expected from you.
Anybody else?
I think I would throw in here, and this is something we touched on yesterday in the team analyst panel right at the start of the day. At least from my angle, I see many routes into the hockey industry still, where it hasn't really solidified. It's not a 200-year-old industry where there are clear paths and a university course that you must take, and if you haven't passed it, then you're not welcome. We still see people come in, or Thorsten may have been a hockey player who found his way in this way, and my experience is different, coming from an education background and a degree completely aside from tech. And the people that work in our company, just like Thorsten is saying, we have data scientists for sure. We have hockey experts for sure. We have just such a wide range of backgrounds. And for me, I think that's really empowering. It's exciting that the field is still so open that you can come at it from as many different angles as we have here. There's lots of routes in if that sort of love of sport is kind of at the center of it. There's lots of ways to get here.
And what I've learned now also, you don't have to be an athlete to get in this business either, even though some of you are athletes. We got to hear from some women, Megan Charka earlier, who wasn't an athlete either. Carleen McLeish, who was also not an athlete, but a data scientist and loved to do it and loves hockey and learned to love hockey. So it doesn't have to be an easy path. Morgan, Speedio, you guys are a Swedish company. Do you go to the universities and try to find people from Swedish universities, or where do you look?
I think it's the whole industry has been very, very interesting for the last couple of years. I said, with everything that comes for TV and so. But we are, I would say, majority of the people in our company coming from the mobile industry, or have some kind of background from that. I myself have a sport background, but all the developers and everything is coming from that to try to find a solution that is going to be easy to use, but still very, very kind of complex in the back. But I think it's getting to harder to get better people, I guess I would say, into the industry. But it's a lot of people today that are in the industry has some kind of they're voting for a team or whatever, and they wanted to come in and be part of it, and work with something that they like at the same time with sports that most of the people like. So I think that's interesting, but it's a tough to get the good people, I would say, right now.
Martin?
Yeah, I think it's like we heard yesterday also, is people could also work for other businesses in the transport industry, or what we heard yesterday, but for them it's really nice to use their skills in sport, because that's what they like, what they do in their free time, and yeah, what they enjoy to do, and combine it with work. That's fantastic.
Yes, I think the work we do is in the intersection of computer or data science and sports. So there are you can become a sports scientist. There are sports science training courses. You can become an engineer. You can become a data scientist. But where we work is the intersection, and there's not yet a, let's say, formal education for that. It is my experience has a lot to do also with personal relationships, like the engineer that is near to the sports scientist working at the hockey club, and they're developing ideas together, and that's what we try to also do with the University of Lucerne. Is this matchmaking is really important. I mean, if you look at one of the first wearables that's been used, maybe the first one, the Polar, heart rate belt, it was only possible because the Finnish national coach knew an engineer that could build such things, and that's still how it works now. In Lucerne, we have this course which is in Master in Information Data Science, and they have different domain experience that you can visit. And I have the domain experience sports, and try to, show the data scientist how what is special about sports. Having qualitative and quantitative aspects of the game, and try to. How do you deal with that? That's totally different than in other industries, for example.
Now, Martin, you talked about OIM as being you want to use other data and to help the athletes, and you specifically are focused on the athletes' performance and making them, I think you said, their best version of themselves. While we have the other three companies, Sport Contract, Speedio, and SportLogic, that does more teams or trying to create tools for coaches to improve their coaching and their team's results, obviously. Do you guys consider yourself competitors? or do you consider yourself on the front line, pushing forward, trying to do new things all the time? Thorsten is his part of the world, SportLogic in their part, and Speedio there. Do you say this is one of my competitors, or this is one of my we push the thing forward? What do you say? What do you say, Morgan? Are you competitors with these other companies?
In one way we are, but at the same time, I think the company that will succeed right now is if you have a fairly open platform and are open for other solutions. We know in the highest level of any sports there is multiple solutions to do it, and then there's different workflows in different clubs or federations in that sense. So I think right now, if you're open-minded to see it and find people or companies in the industry that you can work with, I think that could be a very positive thing. I think the companies that are closing themselves or just want to work by themselves, I think they would have a problem. That's my opinion on it.
What do you say,
And
Sean?
I build off of that. I would just say that I think 10 years ago there wasn't a LINHAC. 5 years ago there wasn't a LINHAC. And if we look back, we don't have to go very far to see there weren't data analysts with teams maybe at all. And that's something that's really grown exponentially in the past handful of years. And I think remote work has maybe even sped it up further because people are used to being at home on their computers to do their work. It's become very much part of the workflow for everybody, including sports. So for me, I still see this field as blowing up in around hockey. There's a ton of room for expansion still. So the question is a good one. I think that there's elements of competition within the group for sure. And at some point you hit that outer limit where space becomes smaller, but I don't think we're there. I think we're in a real growth phase still where the industry is expanding. And until we get 20 analysts with each team and entire data departments with every sports club that we want to work with, maybe that's the limit, but we're nowhere near there yet. I think there's a lot of room to collaborate, cooperate, and share.
Thorsten, you have any thoughts about that? Are you competitors with these guys?
I would say the same. The space is opening, so we can see that a few years ago it was, for us at least, it was a quite small group of perhaps 200 pro teams around the world that had the financial means, but also had the people in the organization to work with these kind of things. And the last, I would say, even the last 2-3 years, for us it changed massively. That suddenly junior teams came looking for these kind of tools, and it's becoming a new normal that the players expect these tools be used also by the team. So also the players push the teams to implement these kind of tools now, and to provide this data, to provide that they can do better player development. I mean, we see now that the NHL teams use our system to develop players around the world that are in their organizations. And I think a few years ago that was much more difficult for the NHL teams.
How much now, Martin, you're going to be easy to answer this question, but how much do you guys talk to players, actual players' insights? Is that something that has been part of the development process, or has it been more of statistics first, and now it's graphics and it's film and it's pictures and it's colors? Where were the players in this? Were they involved at all? Again, Morgan, you can go, or Martin, excuse me, you can go last because I know that you obviously deal with the athletes directly. Anybody else want to jump in there? Where are the players in this?
I can say from our end that because we have this technology, it's getting much more easier for the coaches to prepare videos and to share them with the players, or that the players just after the game or the next morning log into our system on their mobile application, and they just can see the last game broken down. They can see the shift, they can see the power plays, the center can watch the face-offs or the next opponent. I think that's totally different to 2 years ago when the coaches did all the work. And I think that's also what we heard today and yesterday, is that we try to do a lot of work or take a lot of work away from the coaches, and the coaches can concentrate on player development again. And that was the last years more and more the coaches had to do that because there was no alternative, and the teams were expecting that they do all this kind of video work and data work.
Sean, Morgan?
Yeah, I think that's really well put. I think you want that the coaches in the end to be the conduit for the information, Sport Logic would be providing, that ultimately you want to have those conversations with coaches, make sure they're getting what they need, what they know their players need to know or need to prepare for or need to develop. Ultimately, that's where, I think I want my communication mostly to stop, is to empower coaches and managers and trainers to do what they need to do with the players, and kind of keep that level of separation. I don't think that likely lasts forever, though. Like, we're talking about how this field is growing and how different tools and customizations are going to change the way we interact. So I think that grows and grows. But as it stands for now, I'm very happy to defer to the experts behind the bench and in the locker rooms and empower them with the information they need, but then turn it over to them to run that conversation after.
Interesting.
Yeah, I will add a little bit to that. It also depends on what kind of level we are. On the highest level, I think it's more driven on that. But today, when you're developing players and everything, training is a big thing. Now, when we have a system, when it's ice hockey, you usually train and play games in the same arenas. So you have possibility to actually film all the practices as well and follow all the players and help them to developing. I'm talking Speedio in our system. I can actually follow each player whatever I want to see and help him or the defense or whatever to continue to develop. So it's I think it's a little bit about what kind of level or where you are in developing. The players today like to see themselves. That's actually the fact. How you do that.
Martin, I know you guys work directly with athletes, and so obviously they've got to be a part of that process. Where do you see the analytics and the individual responsibility, or I'm taking charge of my own situation. I'm involved in understanding the numbers and the analytics and the different statistics that are out there. Do you see a lot of athletes that want to do that?
It's not particularly the athletes. I mean, they are totally focused on their training and performance, and I think data creates provides value for more strategic decision, player development, then load management, these things. And when we talk to athletes, it's more like how do I present it? We want to understand, how do I present information to the athlete that he can understand and that it has an impact on his behavior. That's actually on the level of the athlete. You want to see behavioral changes because of the data that you present him. But then when it comes to strategic or tactical decision, that's totally another story. This is you take more long-term data to make decision makers understand or get better informed about their decisions.
Yeah, I can see. I think we should differentiate between data and video, because we can see that the players the last years getting really independent, or they really start to care about this kind of things, and they want to see the videos, and they want to they don't have to wait anymore for the coaches that they prepare everything. They can go in and they can watch, they can discuss, they can see what happened, and they can think about how to prepare and kind of things. I think it's a change with video and with data. I think with video the players got much more mature and they use this video much more than years ago.
I think that's a really good point, that distinction between the numbers that you might present in a chart or in a spreadsheet and the video that a player might watch of themselves. And I think, Morgan, you're making the point maybe about the type of person that athletes are today. If you think of what the 20-year-olds today are like, and makes me feel very old already to look back and say the next generation, this is how they are. But that appetite for video and for watching yourself and for being comfortable with technology in your hand to review, I do think, Thorsten, that's a really good distinction to make, that I may not want to drop a spreadsheet on a player's lap and say, take a look at these, but the video is a different beast. And I think the appetite and the understanding in this culture, there is an openness to it. So it's a good point to draw a line between those.
And it has to be user friendly, because if it's too complicated, the time today, you play games, you travel, you're training, you go, you're constant on the move. So it has to be also user friendly for the coaches and the players to use it. So that doesn't matter who it is and what kind of level, and
that seems like a trend in almost everything we have now, from our telephones to our computers to everything else. It's got to be extremely easily accessible, and driving here or there or whatever it may be, it's got to be quick to get at. And I totally agree with all of you that talk about the videos. I see my own son or his players or his colleagues or his teammates, that they get to see the video right afterwards. Now, everyone obviously looks at the goals first because they're happy they scored a goal, and they may not review their mistakes the same way, so they need somebody to help them with that, but certainly it's a new parameter.
I think to help the coaches, help the coaching a little bit for the players to think a little bit maybe how the coaches are thinking as well, in that sense, when you can put some content to what you're doing. I think that's quite important to see as well, because usually before, you just, like, the coach told you something and then you said no, but now you can actually get some footage out of it and some other data, and you can actually have a good discussion, the players and the assistant or the coaches in that sense. So I think it's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, and I think also what we see is that I was asked a while ago what I think is one of the most interesting invention or whatever on the internet, and for me it's YouTube, and it's because suddenly every person can sit at home and whatever. I would like to learn to play the guitar, or I want to cook something, or I want to see how I fix my bike or whatever, and I have this ability to get this access, and that's exactly what we also provide. So theoretically, now the player from a small club can go in and they can watch all the players around the world, and they can see how they do things, and they can develop. So I think it's a kind of explosion of knowledge sharing, what we produce on a hockey level.
And it's always expected for every generation that you learn more and you do more. I remember when I played many years ago, you had to cut a video and you got to see 3 clips that somebody took a half an hour or 2 hours even to cut one short piece that showed nothing. Now, I don't know if you guys saw Carl Schwarzenbrunner with us earlier today, but he said that you've got 7 minutes as a coach with a video if you want to keep their attention. What does that say to you guys? You need to be making changes. They can't be watching they can only be watching 7 minutes. Otherwise they lose their interest in the film. Did any of you guys see that?
I mean, that's one thing that we all experience, and now I refer to Sean. We're getting older, very old, and I think we can see it with our kids, and that the what they do or how they consume is totally changing, and then that's for sure. It's not what affects us probably today, because these are kids between 6 and 12 or something like that. But I'm sure that in 5 or 10 years, if you don't adapt to this kind of new behavior or these expectations, then the systems will be not interesting for them or will not help the players to develop as they need.
Right, and I think
go ahead, Sean.
Sorry, I would say to that point, it's 7 minutes, but it's 7 dense minutes that we have too. And just watching my own children and knowing just how I'm working, even as we're talking here, I've got my phone, my laptop, I've got a number of things around me too. I might only have 7 minutes myself, and not just players, but the team personnel we speak to, they may have 7 minutes of really true attention that they want to pay. but that's dense time. And if we've got dashboards that treat a couple of different pieces of information all at once, we're also a multitasking sort of generation too, where you can throw a lot at somebody in a short span of time. So it's just incumbent on our products that they bring a few different pieces together at once instead of being single toned, because 7 minutes is brief and it'll run out, but you can really multitask it, I think, if you chunk things together properly.
What age should children or young boys and young girls be exposed to analytics in hockey? Is it an easy thing to say, or is it it goes as fast as the parents let it go, or should there be a part of with their milk when they're just born?
I think it's will be totally normally. I mean, I was asked many times in my life when you're a professional hockey player or goal whatever, and they say if you meet people that are not in the game, they tell you, how could you stop this puck because the game is so fast. And I think for me I never experienced that the puck got faster. I mean, I started with 6-7 and the puck was fast, and it was fast when I was a pro player. And I think it's the same with these kind of videos analytics. It just comes in natural. They see it, they adapt it, and that's how it is. I think for them it's just normal. It's just there. They will come to a certain level. The teams work more professionally or have the ability to work professionally, and then suddenly these tools are there, and they are happy that the tools are there to use and to use them to develop themselves or these kind of things.
And I think one thing we haven't pointed to too much yet is the language piece of it that maybe sort of goes with what Thorsten's pointing at as well, where you can talk to younger players, I think, if the language that you're using is carefully chosen. So instead of saying to the 100th decimal point or a heart rate or controlled entry success percentage, we might just be saying things like, you'll get more shots if you carry it across the blue line. And this is better, this is worse, this is a good idea, this is a less good idea. And having that ability to dial our language, up as complicated as we need it at the pro level, and then down as simple as we need it as you move down towards, lower developmental leagues. I think that we'll see it continue to grow, just, how deep into developmental leagues there's a demand for the product. It's just the language that we need to use around it to make sure that we're saying better, worse, rather than 100th of a decimal point, and we can get there that way.
The thing that I'm think about is that we've all talked about the filters, and the filters from the numbers, the information filters through something to then a coach, and then a coach filters it again and takes the player. If we're talking youth players, you don't have that structure, so it kind of comes to them unfiltered possibly. But just as you say, Sean, the coaches might just have to learn a better language, better way to speak to the children or the youth players, boys and girls, and explain it to them in a common sense example as you had. Carry the puck across the blue line, and you're going to score more goals without putting in any numbers into it. Now, Martin, you guys are a little differently. You guys, what level of the athletes that work with OIM? When can I put my son or daughter into OIM?
Well, there is we have the U17 up and until the first team. So we also have a OIM college where we have set up structures that they can learn a job beside their training, but in a way where we can optimize their training.
Sean, I think you said it that this business is going to explode, and I truly believe that it will as well, just due to the fact that there are so many people out there that like learning about themselves, and you're giving the capacity to be better, whatever it may be. And I don't even think it's going to stop at athletics. I think there are a lot of things that I could go on to. How do I become the best student, and how do I become the best university student, or something in that nature, and learning about the bodies and different statistics. So I want to change focus. Who owns the data? Can I go into your home pages? Can I take off the numbers? You guys are putting numbers out there. Can I steal your numbers and then package it as my own numbers? It's not a picture. I'm not going to take a picture. I'm going to just read them, copy them, and then do something else with them. Who owns it? Whose data?
I think there'll be lots of interesting answers. I'll throw one in quick and get out of the way. I think our partners own it. So that's the key, is that we're working with clubs at all these different levels and generating statistics based on their performance, and then working with those partners. And so that ownership is shared in that way between you and your partner. I think field that's expanding, how the rules change and expand as this goes on for 10, 20 more years. It'll be interesting to see. But right now, there's sort of that shared piece between team and provider. The ownership is something in between those. I think it's probably the safest way to say it, but I'll duck and get out of the way for the others to chime in.
Right before you let me just do a little follow up there. So what you're saying is that SportLogic and the team. So Färjestad, Frölunda, or the leagues that you work with, the teams, or is it then, do they sell that then to Seymour, or does Seymour own part of the numbers? Can they do what they want with it? I assume that this is kind of something, an untamed ground for the future, but therefore my question. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I would say the teams we are signing contract with is owning the content. If we sign with the league will own the content of everything there. So it's an interesting question, because there's a lot of media coming in now in lower divisions. I would say that in the next couple of years there will be cameras on every rink, all over. Like Division 3, Division 4, Division 5 will have cameras now, and that's going to be some kind of media company that's going to own that. So it's a very interesting question to put out there, I would say.
If I look at Swedish hockey, they're now showing the Division 1 finals, and for the people out there that don't know, you have the Elite League, which is the highest league, the 14 best teams. Then you have an all-Swedish league, which on the end of that you have Division 1, and they're showing all their playoffs now, and they had a big fight about the rights in the league. Thorsten, what do you think? Do you guys own all the data that you guys have, or do you share it, or do you not own it? Can I steal it?
I would say it's the same. So if you work with leagues and with teams, they own the data. I think what we all we make sure this is a closed system, and that we have, again, to differentiate if you use the system for just work with clubs or with players, the kind of inner circle, and it's not only about the data, it's also about the videos. Or if you use the videos for the outer circle, so that means for media, betting, or these kind of things. And I think what we have to achieve is that we need all together to try to get as much money into the inner circle. But if, for example, companies that we at the moment we're only in the inner circle, so we work together with the teams and the leagues, and the data don't go outside. They're just inside for hockey development, for the leagues, for scouting and pre and post game analytics and these kind of things. In the moment data go outside, there must be that the leagues are involved, and then also there must be ability for the leagues to earn money with these kind of things if it goes to betting or these kind of things.
This seems to be like it's going to be an issue for the next coming 5 or 6 or 10 years. For every step of the way. Do you guys agree with that, or you agree that it's pretty clear cut?
I think there will be, let's say, legal has to, somehow solve this problem, because there are now like fights for the right, for who the questions are open. I think it will be clearer, and GDPR shows, for me, it shows clearly into that direction that the athlete should have more rights to be able to control what has been done with his data, especially training data. I mean, competition data is more or less in public domain. Everybody could, get statistic by doing notation analysis, but training data should be private, and I think it will go into this direction, and data governance will be more and more asked by the clubs.
When you say the data should be private, do you mean that the athlete should own it, or that what we were just talking about, the teams and the provider should own it?
I mean, I think it will go into the direction where the athlete will, in this case, own it, and being able, and then, but providing the clubs or his employee to use it for his development. But once he leaves the club, he should be able to say, please delete it, that is GDPR, right to be forgotten. He can take it with him. He should be able to control what happens with his data once he leaves the employee. But I guess there will be agreements about how the data is used as long as he's playing for a certain club or a team. I think it will go in this direction more and more.
I know that in the Swedish contracts, with their contracts they put in where their picture, so and their name, that they can then use in their own rights to sell partnerships, which go against the teams. And this has been a big discussion in Swedish hockey. And what I hear from you guys is that this data rights is going to be that intense in the coming years as well. And Martin, you say that you could take the data with you and not leave it. That's an interesting concept for me to take numbers about the way I played. Could I ask the team that I played for to take me out of their statistical database? Also an interesting. I don't expect an answer from anybody, but it's an interesting concept.
I mean, it's something that has to be clear when a player starts to play for a team and he's sensitive to this, for example. Then there will be more and more players that would be aware of what the value of their data is, and they get more sensitive to it, and they will ask for such agreements. And I mean, taking your data with you is not such a bad idea. Let's say you have very similar indicators that were measured in your former clubs, and now you have a more continuous understanding of your own performance and how it develops, even if you change the clubs.
Could you refuse then a club to see your data? Interesting. Any last words about data ownership? I assume that is something that you guys hear about and talk about a fair amount these days.
I think it's again about sorry, Morgan, but it's really about that. What we can see also is not only the trend that we have more and more analytics data about the player in the game, we have more and more data in practice, but that we also have more and more really body data and these kind of things. And I think here's what there's a clear line, at least what we hear from, or what we discuss with the teams, is that in the moment we process body data or heart rate or these kind of things. I mean, it's totally clear that this is owned by the clubs, is owned by the player. But as Martin said, if there's a game and there's a goal and you have 3 assists or something, I think that's something that you can easier share these kind of things, or the discussion is more about really this kind of personal data about your medical record and these kind of things. And that will also be more and more included in all this kind of analytics. And for sure, here the players have the rights to say, no, I don't want to share that. I don't want anybody can see it, but also the ability, as Martin said, to take it with me, that the next club knows, okay, I had these 3 injuries already, because then the medical department, the fitness coaches, everybody knows exactly what has happened before. they can help prevent new injuries. So I think it's not only in one direction, it's also sometimes helpful to have this kind of information and to take it with you to the next club, because then they can help you to work better with that kind of history every player has.
But there's a fine line there, I guess, compared to players and coaches, because if a coach got sacked, he shouldn't be able to take the data with him. I think it's a good line to have.
Yeah, I totally agree with
now you have to
Morgan here.
expand on that, Morgan. What do you mean? If I hear a coach, they're not allowed to take the data from the team that they were just on?
Yeah, like today, coaches are usually traveling like with an assistant or whatever. At least in it's getting more and more popular, I guess, in ice hockey. But in football, for example, if one of the bigger coaches is gets sacked, he probably has his whole team with him, with a handful of analytics guys and assistants, etc. that are leaving. And I think it's quite interesting too that the team itself owns the data and want to do. And these are the tools we are using in this club. If the coach comes in and has something to bring in, that's fine, but it still has to be pretty clear from the club itself. It's like, okay, these are the tools that we're using, whatever coach is coming in or not, and I think that should be it. So even if there comes in a coach, and he shouldn't be able to take the data with him.
I think a lot of things that we see in every other industry, that you work for a company and you produce for that company value. And I think in sport, as Morgan said, it was in the past often that you did scouting or whatever, or you produced something for coaching, and then you left the team, and theoretically the team started with no information, with the new stuff. I think in a normal business world, it's totally normal that the data, everything you produce in the time that brings value to the organization, stays inside the organization when you leave, because you want to give the team something, or the organization, that they can work long term. And that's also what we need in sport, that the teams work long term, and that they understand that this kind of information, the employees build over time is valuable and help them also in the future.
Well, I think that comparison with the employee and the employer is not so accurate for sport, because the athlete himself is a little company or a product that wants to promote himself, market himself. So the employee isn't like he's an employee that is mandated to do this kind of work for the company and stays in the company. But I think it's different for athlete. It's not
exactly. But I think what we just said was for the staff, for the coach. So I think that they can be seen as employees, and the players. I think they produce something on the ice. The team to win or to be successful. Or these kind of things. I think there's a clear line between the staff that try to build organizations that can have a strategy long term, and I think
for coaches I totally agree, and especially it's really difficult when they have their own staff, their own data analyst, and then it's really hard to also, because you have different kind of information. I mean, you can have just tracking data, which needs a lot of expertise to really extract value from it. But then you have more and more aggregated data that becomes really actionable information that you can use to make decisions. So I think this question is not, you cannot, answer it for all the data. I mean, if you think psychological profiles, medical data, much more sensitive. So it's a question of sensitivity that you have to certain data being private, and a lot of things. Physiological data is like, should be maybe more private than, let's say, numbers of time scored in a small-sided game that you did in training or whatever. That will be discussed for every kind of data, individually, I guess, somehow.
I totally agree that the personal information, my heart rate, my psychological balance, or whatever it may be, the food that I eat or don't eat for that matter, should stay with me. I just want to throw a little turn in there. And when I used to work with the hockey team, my boss would always come in and try to compare it with a normal company. If we see a coach as being a production manager, also they're not the president of the team because you have a president or a chairman of the board. You have a CEO, which you have in the hockey clubs or football clubs, but then you have a coach, and the coach is production manager. He's going to produce. He needs to make the team win. If a production manager were decided to leave the company, or if he were to be fired, he would have to leave everything on the table, his computer there, walk away, put your keys in, and leave, and not take anything with him. What's the difference here? Why should a coach have anything right because he thought well, that's what he's gotten paid for the last X amount of years. And now all of a sudden he's gone, he chooses to leave, or he's gone. Well, then you turn your computer in, you turn your keys in, and you're gone. I guess I don't know where I want to go with this, but I just think this data it's going to be an interesting question for the next 5 years. You guys are going to get twisted back and forth with the coaches and with the teams and with the players, because once the players find out what it's worth, they're going to want a part of it too.
But I think it's been a lot of changes in I would say in any sports in that level in the last many years now, that all the companies run all the teams are run like a company because there's so much money involved. So you have to kind of run it like a company, or a smaller company, or a bigger company for that matters. So it's I think it's quite you see more and more people coming from other industries that come in to be the CEO of a team or something like that don't really have a background, but they're very good businessmen or women for that matter, to running clubs like a big company at the moment.
Sure.
Yeah, and that also makes that there will be, you will be demanded to follow a clear data governance strategy. I mean, that's part of being professional and like a company.
But I think, just to wrap it up on the analogy Mike was using, that the idea that maybe a coach is a production manager, and so if we think of a factory, when you turn in your keys and your laptop and you leave, you're not, filling your vehicle with products from the company on your way out the door. And in the same way, if a coach is sacked or fired, we don't expect them to load players into their van on their way out of the arena for the last day that they're with the team either. So I think we've pointed out a really interesting distinction that needs to be made, but there is some line there, and we're all going to be involved in sorting that through over the next few years for sure.
Let's switch focus. Associate Professor Tim Brecht, who's at the Waterloo University, talked about something that he calls ground truth. And he was discussing that you would allow fans, or through fantasy or through different ways, to try to say what this is. Is this a good pass, or is this a shot, or is this something else? Do you guys understand when he says that, what he means and how this will take the next step? I'm trying to understand it, and I'm hoping one of you can really explain it to me to get the value and to say, yeah, this is true. What we're predicting, this is actually happening, or as he called it, the ground truth. And to me, that is the experts, if it's fans or if it's old hockey coaches or if it's old hockey players, I don't know. But they were then creating the understanding of the different situations. Who could explain this to me?
I would like to jump in here because I think that is one of the most interesting problems in sports data analytics, is being able to demarcate, let's say, certain semantic events of the game. Like I remember when we were talking with national youth coaches in football to understand what the transition phase really is, when it starts and when it actually ends, the offensive to defensive, when it is a defensive phase. How long is the transition? What is the beginning and end of a transition? And we talked for a half a day, and we came up with a solution, but nobody was happy, really. Nobody was really happy. It was a compromise. And it was just because we need to have clear distinctions. Computers don't understand our fuzzy concepts that we work with when we analyze qualitatively. When we analyze qualitatively, we are talking about concepts that we assume everybody understands. But when we are building computer software, we understand that there's no clear solution, really, not clear enough for a computer to understand. And so you need a ground truth. You need to, and for many things, you can, there's a rationale behind it. But for many things, it is a common fuzzy, concept that we share, but nobody really discussed about it, what it really is in terms of quantifiability or objectivity.
Well, it makes me think in hockey, especially, it's a sport filled with events that could be categorized as good or bad, depending on the players, depending on the situation, depending on the coaching staff, and all of these things, all of that qualitative is debatable. And so even just the transition phase that Martin is pointing to in hockey, I think of breakouts. Is this a purely offensive action, or is it evidence of good defense to move the puck out of your defensive zone? Which phase of the game are you in such a fluid sport? Or someone who dumps the puck in, you're releasing possession of the puck. Well, by and large, this isn't a good idea. But maybe you're the kind of team that races on to puck battles and you recover these loose pucks really well, and it's how you're built. And so anytime we're trying to say ground truth, we immediately wind up in judgment calls about what is good and what isn't good. And maybe the only way to tackle it, at least one lens on it, is to try to be one step back of qualifying it in any way and saying there were these many things and these many other things, and leave that customizable to the team, the coach, the partner to come and say, okay, well, I value these actions as described. I understand what they are. I can see what the rules are. I count those as good, even though some other user might come in and say, I see these as not good. But trying to point to ground truth, I think it's just very difficult. You realize immediately you could spend half a day discussing virtually any metric and get nowhere, depending on who you're talking with.
Now, Sean, just to follow that up, could a coach today or organization today go in and pick out those truths, those 7 or 8, 9 truths that's important to them, high off the glass when you're low in the corners because you want the puck in the middle of the zone, or do you have to be earlier in the actual creation of the different algorithms and things like that? Do you have to be earlier in the process, or could each team make their own kind of last steps so that it fits their team's strategy?
I think, right. So great question. I think that's where we're getting to with this next wave of analytics, is this desire from partners, from teams, to have their hands on the dials and to say, this is the sequence of events that we value. And so the challenge for a provider is to be as granular as possible so you can take those building blocks and say, this is the system that this team values, and this is how these pieces will be aggregated into a metric that then is going to be counted from there. So I guess the answer is you do need to provide granular enough data that it's almost like Lego blocks that can be put back together in different ways at different times for different people. That's a challenge in terms of, we're thinking of data governance, we're thinking of all these different challenges facing the field. Well, data storage becomes a problem really quick if you're going to keep things in pieces so small that you're going to reassemble them based on the person. The effort required to do that is great, but it's certainly a value if you can say, we're not going to put too many things all together prefab for you. You need to have a hand in saying, these are the metrics, these are the sequences of value, and be flexible to meet that need.
Are there any teams out there in the world today that actually do that?
I mean, I think all you need to all you need to look at for evidence of that is how big data teams are getting. And I think, whether or not I know about it or any of us here know about it, if you've got 5 data scientists working with a team, they're creating their own metrics, they're evaluating their own systems internally. And as data providers, that's, I think, the challenge for us, is to put enough of those tools in the tool belts that they can build what they're going to build. So for sure, I think that's a wave that started in hockey already.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. Yeah, no, I would say it's some of this here is starting from practice. What you do in practice, you tend to do in games. It's not the opposite. What you do in an early age to educate the players, to take away habits, to take the next step and be ready. And if you can get data out of practice, you can train a lot of those things and then execute that on the game. And then I think you will have a quite good solution for that, I would say. I think that's quite important. There's a lot of focus on games today, but we actually tend to practice a hell lot more than what we do in playing games. And that's how you educate the players. And if you can do that in a smooth way, an easy understanding, I think you have a lot of winning to do on that.
If we get back to ground truth, Thorsten, what do you think? The idea of ground truth and getting there, how are we going to create a common, I guess, base of 2 + 2 is actually 4?
Yeah, I think as Sean said, so as a data company, you split the game in little part and little events, and you provide these kind of play-by-play files to the teams, and then the analysts take these files and do what they need or want to do with that. So I think our task is to provide more and more accurate and consistent data to the teams that they can work with, and the analysts can use this kind of data for their own needs. And as that the game is split in little events, and it will be getting more and more.
Where are we going to go with this in the next little piece? What are you guys going to do in the future? And I understand that it's in some way your competitors, but if you could try and give us, this is what we think is important, this is where we want to keep moving. And I'm going to start that with asking about statistics. Now, I don't remember, I can't do the years. Let's say 10 years ago, stats. They were really, really important. And now we have a bunch of videos, and we've got stripes going through the videos, and we've got different kinds of ways to show things, how things are happening. Where are we going, and what's the next step? What are we going to be watching on TV, or what are the teams going to be using to show their players? Are we going to be able to do 3D models? Are we going to be able to do where we put on VR glasses and be able to see ourselves? Where are we going? We've got about 20 minutes to talk about the future, and I'd like to try to take a trip in the future. When we're here 5 years from now, I'd like to say, we talked about that 5 years ago, and now we're here. Look at this. Isn't this great? Anybody that wants to start?
Yes, I would like to, use this also to maybe to talk about how we can, resolve or try to resolve this problem of the ground truth also. I think that is a big challenge in the future, is that we somehow marry or somehow are able to analyze qualitative data and quantitative data together, or the thing in between. Like, for example, last year the PhD student just finished his PhD that I was supervising, and what he did was you had an ice rink, in the software that you can. It was like a canvas. You can draw your, let's say, patterns that you want, the patterns of play. You can draw it, and then it was looking in the data for such patterns, dynamically, and showing you all the moments in the video. But if you have, like, for example, 120 scenes, You don't want to go through 120 videos. What you do is you drill down with the statistics that you also do on the fly. So you can learn more about what happens when this pattern is played. Like with this pattern, how fast are we crossing the blue line, for example? As I said, when we met, a few days ago, how important it is that the coach can ask questions, and those must be answered very quickly with data. So you need to give him this flexibility to analyze his own patterns that he wants to play. The things that he does in training, as Morgan said, in training you are training those patterns, but you want to know how many times in the game did that pattern actually get played, and if it got played 3 times, if it's a complex pattern, it get played maybe only 3 times, you can go and watch the video. You are more in a qualitative analysis, but if there are more of those patterns, you can start to, see if there's some special pattern sense of data, how are the metrics?
And those patterns, they may be tied to rosters and players too, ultimately. And maybe I'm devising a brand new product here together with this group, so I guess we're all working together now. But this idea that maybe you take a roster and those patterns, now you can see which of them are likely to result from this group, or vice versa. These are the patterns that we tend to see. Here's the kind of group that supports them best, or strategies against it. Some of those sort of algorithmic or machine learning type models. I think Oliver Schulte yesterday was sort of pointing at some of that, or presenting some research in that idea. I'm not sure how close we really are to that kind of idea, but maybe we celebrate in 5 years when we come back and that sort of thing is done. The second thing I'd throw in on this is I still think there's a long way to go. Just that real theme of expansion of the field, that right now I think a data analyst with a team, they're going to want to talk to any of us here. They're going to want to get the data and work with it. Really progressive assistant GMs, video coaches, there's this select group of people that tend to be the first ones in the door that want the analytics for their team. But then there's that next wave of holdouts where they still sort of want to trust their gut, trust their experience a little more than looking at the numbers. I think as product creators here, that's the challenge, is how do you design that next tool that welcomes the next wave of team employees into analytics and makes it comfortable and makes it understandable, whether that's really good mobile apps, whether that's complete redesigns of products so that it's coach friendly, scout friendly, player friendly, up and down an organization. I think we're still kind of at the crest of kicking that door in, that analytics are totally a part of hockey. So how do you sort of kick that door even wider open by tapping into people in the organizations who might not be the first or most accepting of it?
It's an interesting thought, and I'd want to challenge you and say the explosion bringing in 5 new analysts as opposed to going after the one person internally to bring them out. But I guess it's probably the same. You got to do both at the same time to get them involved. The one that doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to use it because their stomach feels good or their gut feels good, he'll be out of the game, or she'll be out of the game in a few years. But I certainly understand the idea. Morgan, where are you guys going to be in 5 years? What's going to happen? Tell me something.
Yeah, we got to continue to do what we're doing here. We have two branches in Speedo, I would say. We have one for the Perform, which is for the clubs and the teams, and we have a media part that goes from streaming. So the media part, I would say, had been blowing the last year and a half, just through the pandemic and everything. So that's a very, very interesting path from our side. But I will also say the performing part, a little bit go back to the pattern. I think we are in Europe. I think we play a little bit different, not play, but it's like how we're running the teams or et cetera. Because in NHL, AHL, you have one team, but in Europe you have first team, under 20s, 18s, and down. So there you can also find patterns for the different teams to be prepared to go for the next one. So it's a little bit different how you compare European and North American hockey, I would say, in that sense. I think it's the teams in I would say in Europe, but the teams we work with, it's very interesting to get all the teams and the coaches involved in this, because if they can play like the first team do, it's going to be a massive success, hopefully, a little bit further on. So, but yeah, I just want to kick that in. But yeah, but we will continue to do what we're doing. Again, we have a pretty strong analytic tool ourselves that we are constantly developing, but we are not that big right now, so we need other providers. If there's someone that are good, we would have no problem to try to implement them with us, I would say.
Thorsten, what do you think?
I think for us, what we can see is that we build, or we work on building easier and easier tools to access all these kind of videos and data, or to have the ability to do scouting and combine with videos or with analytics or these kind of things. So I think it's for us, it's building software that can be used better by the teams, easier used by the teams, and it's still, we can see that the acceptance in every team or on every level is getting bigger and bigger, but there's still a lot of teams that need a little bit time to these kind of things, and I think we try to give them a helping hand to adapt this kind of new possibilities, and together with them, then we build the next generation and the next generation of these kind of tools, and not to lose these kind of coaches or teams, and in the end, to show them that data and videos are really helpful for them, and to win games, but also to develop players.
Martin, I know that you and OIM have a lot of resources, have the opportunity, have strong backing to do a lot of good things. What will you guys be improving, starting, creating in the next 5 years?
Well, one of our goal is to is that testing, like what we say is every training is a test. That's how we want to work with data, is that while they train, we have information about their performance. While they eat, we also have information of how they eat, and we monitor also the biomechanics. So the idea is really to build a knowledge base around athletic performance, and be able to measure in a frequency that allows us to act quickly to things. I mean, the athletic performance is a dynamic, multifactorial phenomena, and it's really complex. And when you test, for example, let's say twice or even 3 times a year, you have just little, you can shed some light at certain time points, but you need to be continuously monitoring. So we are really pushing that frontier of how to develop athletes by measuring high frequency, analyzing continuously, and adapting also continuously.
Consolidation in the future, or more small companies? I don't mean to be at any means disrespectful, but they're pretty small companies in a big world. Apple telephone came out and kind of wiped the field with Ericsson and other things, and a lot of those technologies are now in different companies. Do you guys see that this business will consolidate to one strong or a few strong providers across the world, or is it going to be broken up country for country, and many smaller places or smaller companies around the world?
I want to maybe quickly say something. I think this field is only going to mature if we allow for specialization. And I think when I do the matchmaking, tech companies with sport organization, the question is, do you have the data or do you need the data? If they don't have the data, you need to get a data provider. You have the data, but you don't know how to extract value. You need to have what I would call a data science partner, a data company, if you want. And if you can't communicate, you have the data, you have the impact, but you have the value, but you don't seem to create an impact with the information you can extract. You should also look into, data visualization. I think there are going to be special. I think the industry cannot mature if there's one big company that takes it up all and tries to do all the steps. I think we have to work on every level, and no one company can deal with all the levels at the same time. We need to have networks of services. Like one service provides the data, the other service analyze it. Maybe there's another service like Tableau or those dashboard builders. There are companies that can be used to just visualize the data.
I also think I hope that the leagues and the teams understand that this kind of videos and data need to be available for special teams, special companies, because that's the only chance that this kind of development can go on. And I think we heard it yesterday that some of the analysts said they would like to see even some data more in the public space to challenge themselves. So I think that's the same what we have here is as long as the leagues understand that this kind of videos or the data should be there for the teams, that the teams own the data, that the teams can work with the company they think they should work with in that space. I think as long as we have that, we have a development, and we can see quite interesting things coming up in the next years.
Sean, Morgan?
I'd say quickly that I think something I said earlier, that it's still definitely a growing space. So in terms of are we at the point of consolidation, or are we at the point of having space for lots of different companies? I would say we're not at necessarily the point that consolidation needs to be. I think there's still plenty of global room for this to grow. But I do like Martin's point, and something I'll leave thinking about a little bit more myself too, that idea of specialization that's possible with different groups doing different things. I do think that is a challenge that something like an Apple, when you get that big, so.
We lost you there for a minute, Sean.
Sorry, am I back now?
You're back now, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's right. You're talking about Apple and the consolidation of Apple.
Right, and just that innovation, that need for innovation disappears, I think, a little bit when you have tremendous consolidation in a space. So I think there's still room for lots of companies for the space to grow. And I think ultimately, like Martin is pointing at, I think it's great because it means different things will be tested out and tried, and specializations. And, we'll hit that down the road, maybe some number of years in the future, where we see some sort of coming together of different companies. But I don't think that's imminent from my perspective.
Anybody with final words? We're getting close to our finish. Any thoughts? Anything you want to put out there? 90 minutes together? Oh, sure. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, maybe I think it's really difficult to become big in sports data analytics because with each sport that you want to, cover, you need to develop a great, expertise, and that takes time. It's a big investment to take in a new sport, and that's why it's really difficult to make a product, that is generic, that goes for all the sports. That's extremely difficult. And I think why the specialization is important is that the customer should be able to, keep his analytics tool and just, change the data provider. There need to be standards, for example, on tracking data, that one can assume that when he goes from one tracking system to the other, that he can still use his analytics that are somehow two different products but are open using APIs. So API first is really, really important in this business, I think, and companies that would rely on their core competencies instead of making a Swiss army knife. So I believe there's data providers, there's integrators, as a software that needs to integrate data, and then there's companies like SwissRT that add immersive analytics, like being able to put the content on top of a video, for example. I think that are all tasks that one company cannot do by themselves. So what we need to is create networks of services, making things available through APIs, and I think that is really important for this industry to mature.
Gentlemen, we're reaching our 90 minutes. I would like to thank you for spending this hour and a half with us and informing. And I certainly hope that we have in a year's time can look back and see this in Linköping as a good starting place for a bright future for all of your companies and for the business in itself. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very
Thank you
much.
very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.